Hello and welcome to Lawwiser. We all love stories. But you know what is the best story ever told? It's human story. In the Great Legal Minds, we cover some very interesting lawyers, and it is so interesting to cover the other side of their life besides knowing their views on some of the contemporary issues. In today's edition, we have a general counsel with us who could have been an IS officer or an engineer, but he chose to become a lawyer. And in my previous conversations with him, he said that it was his real calling. He is CV Raghu, General Counsel, Motherson Group. Raghu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aman. It's always a pleasure to sit with you and chat up.
And Raghu, today is also a special day for us because, after a long spell of COVID, we are starting our first physical shoot, and you are on the inaugural
I'm delighted.
episode.
I'm really delighted.
No, I mean, who
No,
better
it's
person
such a
than
pleasure.
you? Yeah.
It's such a pleasure to see people and converse rather than be on the phones.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. In fact, some of the things that are very interesting about your own life story is that, I know that legal profession was a kind of afterthought for you, but and it turned out to be it was your real calling, and the fact that you've done so well in your career actually is a big testimony of that. Now, tell me something. In our times, back then, the only careers that our parents would push us into was civil services or engineering or medical. So, how much has that changed today? How do you see that entire thing?
So, Aman, the second aspect of your question, I'll come after. Initially, you're right, absolutely. Law was never my preferred choice, in the sense that that's not because I made a choice. Those days only family used to make the choices and you had to go follow. If you're a good student in class 10, you did science, and if you did well in science, you either became an engineer or a doctor. If you didn't do, then you finish your graduation in science, and then you became an MSc, and then you did a PhD, and then you became a lecturer and things like that. So typically small middle class family, dad was a bureaucrat, mother a housewife. The only focus was you need to study well. So you do that for a little while, and then I graduated from a town called Cuttack. Interestingly, my college is about 150 years old. So people in Delhi typically used to say, "Pata nahi kahan se aa rahe ho," but I used to always remind them that remember, even Stephen's College was not even imagined when my college was nearly 100 years old. So having said that, we came to Delhi. Very humble beginning, knew nobody in Delhi. Reached Delhi on summer night at 9:30, platform number 9, New Delhi railway station. Wow. Knew nobody.
Yeah.
So that's how the journey started. All that position that we had was our certificates.
So where did you go from the railway station?
So actually went nowhere. Went across Paharganj to have dinner. Came back to the railway station. Interestingly, those days, if you recall, when you traveled by train, you were always advised to buy a timetable.
Yeah.
So we bought a timetable, and in the timetable, railway timetable, there is at the back end, it's written that if you travel a particular amount of distance, then you can use the cloakroom for a limited number of days. And because we came from Orissa, and which was nearly 2,000 kilometers, we could use it for the full time, which was 7 days.
Wow.
So what we did is that put our stuff in the cloakroom, went, came back, found a bench on the New Delhi railway station and slept for that night. Wow. And while you were just about to sleep, you suddenly have a spray of water on you, because never knew New Delhi railway station gets cleaned every night at about 12 o'clock. Wow. So the sleep starts at 2 o'clock in the night. So that's how we started. Next day morning, you went to the Delhi University, filed your applications, and waited for the list. And those anxiety pants that never knew that Delhi University has what is known as they would have the first list, which is meant only for Delhi University students, and the first list would be for Delhi University, second list would be for outsiders. So when the first list didn't come up, having been a fairly decent student in your life, you always wanted to be on the first list. So that anxiety, And then somebody explained that, listen, there are
That's
still
not for
seats.
you.
That's not for you. That's only meant for Delhi University people. So that's how it started. And over a period of time, it got admitted and the journey started. And the journey was primarily that we wanted to do MSc and then sit for a civil services. Dad being a bureaucrat, sister being a bureaucrat. Family is full of bureaucrats, by the way. So uh, that was one, the family pressure. That with so many bureaucrats around, if you don't make
Absolutely.
it,
You cannot not
you are
do
an
it.
outlier in the
Yeah.
family. The second thing is that coming from small towns, the only jobs that you see which are respectable in society are typically a civil servant. And if you really want to know, I know in today's world many people will disagree, but if a civil service servant really wants to do something for the society, then the person can do enormous things and
Enormous
really
amount.
change the quality of life of people.
Absolutely.
So it's still, so coming back to your question is that, do you still believe that that's the, I, I am, I believe that the old school, which is like good students must do either IIT or do medical or do NDA for that matter.
Yeah.
These are all those traditional jobs which still have value, are still respected in the society, and you cannot wish them away. With the change in time, there are new avenues that have come up where you could, like,
Yeah.
imagine 30 years back, if somebody was to say that you are in media business, your family people will laugh at it.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? I mean,
Absolutely.
you should have been something.
I
But
couldn't
these,
explain to my family even today what exactly I do.
that's right. But today avenues have opened up. It's the world is expanding, so everybody is finding a place. But the new jobs cannot replace the old traditional jobs. Even now, the bureaucracy, in a manner of speaking, uh, the bad part, the good part is that the country still runs, and there are some people there who run the country. So,
Absolutely.
so I'm a very strong believer that the traditional part will always stay because they are all knowledge-based jobs.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
uh, the the addition of jobs that have happened are more skill-based, more interest-based, more passion-based. But there are new avenues that have opened up, and I think nothing wrong doing either of them. But one cannot wish away the other.
Absolutely. Now, in fact, the beginning of your career was also, fairly interesting because I think you pretty much started with corporate jobs only.
Yeah.
And during your initial days, you traveled the length and the breadth of the country. And, you've represented your company in, the small towns here and there, everywhere. So, I'll be very interested in knowing your experiences besides, your encounters in the courts, things about the food, okay, which changes like, every 50 kilometers,
Yeah.
the language, which changes probably every 20 kilometers in
That's right.
India, the culture, and, how would you travel, where would you stay? I think there's so many things to it. So, I mean, it'll be quite interesting to know that
So,
side.
interestingly, you mentioned that I have always been in corporate. Even that was by default, right? I, when you're in law school, you are enamored by practicing counsel, senior counsels who argue, and
Yeah.
you always, it's in those days at least the dream of a lawyer used to be that I must be an arguing counsel before a judge, and you're getting
Yeah.
your judgments done and all that. But my story was slightly different. I don't want to name, he's been a great blessing for me. I revere him and I've briefed him on several matters, don't want to name him. But I went to his chamber, he selected me and he said, Raghu, I'll pay you 300 bucks.
Wow. Okay.
So I said, 300 bucks. And I didn't have a home in Delhi, I had to
Yeah.
rent out a place and all that. So I said, sir, 300 rupees. So what will I do with 300 rupees? He says, no, my clients will come, they'll also pay you tips.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I left his chamber, came out, and I had a cigarette and I thought for a moment. I said, Raghu, you studied so much. You did your MSc, you did your law, everything. And then finally somebody will pay you tips, right? Are you a bartender or something like that? Something didn't gel in my mind.
Yeah.
And luckily around the same time, Unilever was hiring people from campus, and that's another story. I was in my pajama kurta, being a hostler. I had gone to the law fact for something, and I saw this notice, and I actually hand wrote a
An application.
application from the section officer. I took some pages and I just wrote, and lo behold, I got a call. And then there were 3-4 rounds of interview, and was lucky I made it. I wouldn't, people in hindsight attribute that I was very knowledgeable, very talented, which is not true. I attribute that purely to luck, and I made it. And then I joined Unilever. That was my first job. But once I joined, because prior to that I had left a lot of things, as I told you. I left NDA, I left engineering, I left a part of the civil services, I left a part, anything that came, and my father used to think I would do nothing in life. So when this job came, anything that would come my way, I would grab it. And in Unilever, we had this fantastic practice that law officers had to attend courts.
Okay.
And my day one, my boss showed me a cupboard full of about 450 litigations and said, and she said, "This is your portfolio." So I didn't know, and she says, "From tomorrow morning, get going." So I didn't know, and there was a very senior colleague of mine, Mr. Anand. He actually helped me for the first 7 days to tell me which are the matters, and he told me, "I will help you 7 days. After that, you are on your
You're
own."
on your own.
Now
Good old
you
days.
get those files, and then you start traveling. And in levers, you were not allowed to travel on your own account. You had to take advance and you had to travel.
Okay.
So in that, we used to have consumer litigations, weights and measure, trademarks, counterfeit infringements, all of that. And the principle used to be that law officers have to attend matters.
Okay.
You cannot sit in the office and direct lawyers sitting in Aligarh.
Okay.
You have to be there to see what the Aligarh lawyer is doing. So I had the good fortune, and my attitude to the job was slightly different as compared to, I had other colleagues who used to trip about traveling.
Yeah.
I used to say that the only way to learn is that if the boss wants you to be there somewhere, and if the boss is trusting you, you better live up to the trust. Sometimes you'll fail, but at least the boss will appreciate that you are at least picking it up.
Absolutely.
And
Besides that, I think travel is also
travel is a part of
great,
fun.
Teacher. Actually.
It's actually, it taught me much more than my law books taught me.
Yeah.
Because you go to Patna court, or you go to Aligarh court, you go to Agra court, then you go to Kota in Rajasthan, you go to Mount Abu, you go to Jammu, and all courts have their own peculiarities.
Yeah.
I remember a very interesting incident in Kota. It was a hot summer afternoon, where it was a morning court. So 7 o'clock in the morning, I was in the court with my lawyer, and 9:30, the Munshi tells me that Judge Sahab aayenge, but he's not yet come. So you go have your breakfast. We have our breakfast, come back by 9:30, 9:45. Judge Sahab has still not come. It went on till 11 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock he says all matters are adjourned.
Wow.
And I had gone all the way from Delhi, and it was a very important, critical matter for us. So I said, I'm not taking an adjournment. I told the Munshi.
Okay.
I said, I will not sign this. I said, just please tell me where
does he
the
live?
judge lives. So my lawyer who was there from Kota, I said, sir, judges don't listen to. I said, no, I don't believe that. If you plead properly, judges will listen. So my lawyer relinquished me at that point in time. He said, do what you want to do, but I can't ask for it. So I asked the Munshi, and he gave me the address. So I actually landed up at the Judge Saab's residence at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And in Kota, rickshaw, hot. Kota can be really hot.
Rajasthan.
Rajasthan. And this was proper summer.
Yeah.
So I reached 1 o'clock, and then I sent my card in, and the home clerk of the Judge Saab said that Judge Saab is resting now. I said, fine, but please give him this card, and I have. So at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the Judge Saab came out and said, हाँ. So I said, sir, I have come from Unilever. This is a very interesting, important matter for us, and I want you to learn. All the way I have come from Delhi for this. He says, what is so urgent? So I had to sit down and explain to him what is urgent. He says, I can't hear you, are you? You have a lawyer? I said, yes, I have a lawyer. Then from Judge Saab's residence, actually, I called up my lawyer, because those days mobiles were not there. No mobile, so I called him. I said, Judge Saab has fixed the matter at 6 o'clock in the evening. Can you please come and argue this matter? So he was completely surprised. He says, he came, that's about 6, and he argued. Judge Saab actually ordered in our favor.
Wow.
And after hearing, he went through the whole file. Initially, he was very reluctant, but at 7 o'clock, he passes the order. I carry the munshi along with me because I had to take a photocopy. I said certified copies can come. I took a photocopy, Xerox. Those days it used to be known as. Got a Xerox, and I had to scan it back to my office saying that we've got an order. Okay. Now, what does this whole story say? This whole story says that the matter could have been adjourned. And the matter gets delayed for 3 months. In the overall scheme of things, if you are expected to deliver something, you should try your level best to deliver it. 9 out of 10 chances you'll succeed, 1 time you'll fail, but that's okay. But you keep trying. You know, in this whole story, I brought down so many myths in my mind where you can't get the judge's address, first thing. Why can't you read it? You wrote it. Your lawyer tells you, judges don't hear any matters at the residence. They will hear it. Third, at the end of the day, even judges are human beings. The younger generation is in a race that they want to earn. In the sense, because if you build competence, monies will come. If you don't build competence and you want monies, it will never come. And someday you'll fall into that trap of money versus knowledge, and you are a perfect recipe for failure. Because people should respect you for the competence that you bring to the table, not the style that you bring, not the salary that you draw in. Doesn't matter.
So tell me now, in fact, let me just ask you this question in the international context, because I think besides traveling to the nooks and corners of the country, I think you've also traveled, nooks and corners of, a whole lot of other countries also. So, what about those? I mean, tell me something very interesting, one or two interesting things about, your international travels where you've gone for work. And I'm assuming that you would eat everything because otherwise you wouldn't survive.
When food, people, these are all things that you learn, and you must have a very open mind. I'll give you a simple. If you go to UP, he'll say baithiye. You go to Rajasthan, he'll say birajo. And first time I didn't understand what does birajo mean. But that was his respectful way of saying it. Please be seated. Now you have to start learning the nuances, and we always have this innate attitude of looking down upon people. You cannot look down upon people. You respect people, you get it loads back. You disrespect people, you get nothing. Now coming to the international space, there are 2 big things that I learned in my whole year. One, don't go with Indian prejudiced mind. So, and she says, therefore, when you do international transactions, first thing that you have to say that you know the basics of jurisprudence, but don't carry the Indian law and carry it, because then you'll always be biased toward that. So that was my first learning. The second learning is that never believe that the lawyer on the other side, whether it's a German, American, anybody, is better than you. He's got a brief, you got a brief, you are equal to him. And we have this prejudice about color, race, country, developed country versus underdeveloped. I think those paradigms have to be all broken. When you taught at the one-on-one basis, you see the whole negotiation goes very different as compared to when you sit with. I remember I was doing a negotiation with the General Counsel of a very large American company in London, and I had my CFO who started off by saying, "Sir, let me present the numbers." And I immediately stopped the meeting and took him out. I said, "Whom are you calling sir?" Because the moment you say, "Sir," you are subordinating yourself. You have come on equal keel. He is supposed to pay you money, and you are saying, "Sir." And I told him, I said, and he was a very dear friend, Sadaji. So I told him, there'll be, if you can't, just keep quiet, let me handle it. And I handled it. And we actually got what was due to us. So the interesting thing is that you must respect them. I'm not saying that just because on equal keel you have to disrespect them, but you must familiarize yourself with that law a little bit. If you need to use external laws, please use that, get some framework so that your conversation is far more meaningful. Otherwise, you'll be talking on one plane, the other council is talking on, and you'll never be able to negotiate.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, in fact, I'll just come back to the Indian policy scenario, and if you see that there's a lot of policy and regulatory changes happening very very rapidly here, and what are the challenges that you face as a general counsel, and which is who's a part of a very active company into a lot of acquisitions, expansion, and a lot of things that you people do.
So policy changes are only one part of my challenge, but having said that, it's
Sure.
a very important part of the challenge. Uh, I always believe that regulatory changes or regulations come when self-regulation fails. Having said that, what is also happening, which uh, this has not been said in a very negative manner, but a few outliers are forcing regulators to come out with regulations which are fairly onerous on other people who are actually following the law,
Disciplined, yeah.
disciplined and following the law. My personal, this is one request if anybody sees this conversation, when regulations are being changed or regulations are being brought in, please, for God's sake, involve the people who have to implement. If you look at India's regulatory scenario, regulations are drafted by very senior eminent lawyers.
Yeah, but maybe more than often than not, I don't see corporate
Absolutely,
lawyers
absolutely.
involvement in those policy making.
In 2013, when the company law came, I don't know how many company secretaries or how many in-house lawyers were involved in drafting that. And therefore, company law has undergone so many changes. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has been very amenable. They have been listening. But you are redoing what you had done. Had you picked up a few very senior general GCs or company secretaries into that, they would have given you the practical side of it.
Absolutely.
But over a period of time, people have realized the need for in-house counsel, and now in-house counsels are no more postmen.
Yeah.
Earlier, an in-house counsel used to be a postman, like your internal customer asks you a query, you send it to a law firm, they give you an opinion, you send it. Today, in-house counsels are responsible for doing many more things. They are the watchdogs for the company.
Now that brings me to another very important question. That as a part of in-house, legal team or the head of the legal team, you are a lawyer by qualification, but you don't even have your registration in bar council.
Yeah.
Where does that leave you? And in fact, another question related to this is that you have been a part of the founding team of General Counsel Association of India. What is it that where does this leave you, and what is it that you are like your main agenda would be as a part of General Counsel Association of India?
One very good question, and a question that is very close to my heart. And I think that is one thing that I am very passionate about. I have always believed that it is time in this country that people started recognizing the in-house lawyers as one stream of law. As I said earlier, you have litigation counsels, you have IP counsels, you have in-house counsels. Unless you do that, and this is again, most often people misunderstand this to be cutting into each other. No, I think all these jobs are complementary to each other. An in-house counsel brings a particular value to the table. Arguing counsel brings a different value. A briefing counsel brings a different value. And law firm advisory counsels bring a different value. But all of them are complementary to each other. And why would you not recognize a lawyer who's day in and day out implementing the most important laws from a corporate governance point of view? They run practically a very important role in the economy of this country.
Yeah, with now ESG taking
ESG,
center stage, your role is...
If big companies, if I'm just giving you an example, if you had a very firm general counsel in Satyam, I'm just saying, I don't know the facts of that,
Sure.
would you have had a disaster like that? In India, we have had a jump. Till 1990, we were the old school, right?
Right.
And in 1991, the liberalization happened. So a lot of new laws that are internationally prevalent have come in. Now, we did not have the evolution of those laws. So we actually picked up the best practices around the world and made it a law, right? So therefore what happens is that that evolution phase is gone. So sometimes organizations face this challenge that how do they manage this change, step change. But that's reality. You know, if you want to get ahead of the race, you have to run faster than the others. At the end of the day, chartered accountants are registered with their association. Company secretaries have numbers, which with the institute provides them. Why should lawyers be prevented? And why are you not acknowledging the contribution made by General Counsel, albeit for one company or 4 companies that is worth, but day in and out, that person is also doing a lawyer's job. Why is it been presumed that the law, the work surrounding law is only confined to the law firms or to the practicing law? There's a huge amount of work that happens.
Tell me something, then what is stopping this to happen? And, whether, and are there any pressure groups that are going to, prevent this, or so, what's the next step?
It's again an
How would it
evolution
happen?
issue. It's again an evolution issue. Historically, law practice was practicing in the court.
Yeah.
It's only in the last 10, 15, 20 years that you have seen advisory practice, law firms blossoming and all that. I remember in the 1990s there used to be 2-3 big law firms.
Yeah.
J.B. Dadachandji used to be in Delhi, Crawford and Bailey, Mullah in Bombay, and but even they used to primarily do litigation work. There was very little advisory work that is done. It's over a period of time that the advisory law firms have come up, where there is a corporate advisory, and M&As have taken center stage. Capital markets have taken another important phase. Then private equity investments have started coming in. So as that has happened, the Bar Council rules have not acknowledged the changes that have undergone in the in-house segment. So at some point in time, I guess it will happen.
So is it like, who's going to make a representation? How?
It is
what are the next steps?
It is one of our prime agenda to actually represent as General Counsel Association. I am the president of that association, and we are working on that. That we will start talking to various forums and logic it out. We are also trying to see how have General Counsels been acknowledged or recognized in international jurisdictions. If we are going to play the international play going forward, why should the international best practices not be brought into India?
Now, this brings me to my last question, which is again very related question. That if a student comes to you, okay, who's just passed out of a law school and asks you where he or she should go, whether in-house or practicing in the court or go to the law firm, what your advice is going to be?
Very interesting question and very difficult question actually. Because you don't want to predict or prevent anybody from doing well in the other line. But having said that, if a young student was to come to me, I would first ask him, because you know what are your strengths and you know what are your weaknesses. Are you one of those persons who has tenacity? You have energy? Do you have an entrepreneurial element in your life? Then go and practice. Yeah. Certainly, go and practice.
Yeah.
You'll make the big.
Also ready to, not earn a lot of money in the
initial years.
Yeah.
But if you have, that's why I use the word tenacity.
Yeah.
That you can work hard and still believe, and entrepreneurship a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because you have to get clients and all that.
Yeah.
Practice. If you are one of those guys who's very intelligent, very research oriented, but don't want to take too much of personal risk, please go to a law firm. You are a good student, good pedigree at college, law schools will take you, law firms will hire you. In-house, it's a very different ballgame. You want to be an in-house counsel, don't come into in-house counsel if you believe that the quality of life of in-house counsel is very good. I hear that in every time I do an interview with anybody.
Right.
I say, why do you want to change from practice to the quality of life? I don't know what that means.
9 to 5.
No, I don't know what that means because my life is 24/7.
Yeah.
So, but if you have a little acumen, you want to understand business and the law. You are one of those persons who wants to implement. You want interpretation of law is very important. You know, and you like seeing business as it is happening. Uh, you are open to run with a sales guy, with a logistics guy, with a tech guy, and do all of that. So you're getting a complete 360-degree view of business, and you are also getting to apply. You don't know which law will come in. Like if you're doing an IT contract, starting from IT, data privacy, all those, you suddenly move to manufacturing, you're looking at environment, you're looking at designs, all of that, right? You're working in FMCG, you are looking at trademarks, you're looking at FSSAI, you're looking at weights and measures, all of that. So, and suddenly you'll get an excise matter as well. So from here you're jumping. So if you are game for variety, you are game to learn business, you want to grow with the business, by all means in-house counsel. But each one has its own challenges. Each one will have its own learning curve. Each one will have its own earning curve as well. So don't be in-house and start comparing yourself with your batchmate who is in a law firm, and don't compare yourself with a batchmate who is in practice. Because these are, again, as I said, build competence in your space, monies will come your way. If you don't build competence in your space, uh, you know, there's no second thing to building competence. I I always tell people that there are only three things that some boss taught me: knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. Knowledge gives you confidence. Confidence gives you leadership.
Absolutely.
That's linear. It's not that if you're confident you'll have knowledge. You have to first start with building knowledge. Read, read, learn, learn, learn. And many time people say, I know this. That's because they've read it somewhere. Till the time you dirty your hands, you don't know anything,
You don't know
honestly.
anything,
You have to do it yourself. And once knowledge is there, you'll get that confidence because you have done it, you have seen it. And once you're confident, your opinion to the business will be that much more forceful because you have what? Like I remember I was doing recently, we were doing a bids team before the NCLT, and people were saying various things. I said, you can do whatever you want. This is the process. If the RD report is not filed, even if RD comes and argues before the NCLT, NCLT will not pass the order. RD's written report has to be there. And that's the fact.
Absolutely.
So it happened. On the first day, when the date came, the RD was there. He says, I don't see any problems. So the judge asked, when will you file your report? He said, are you filing it today? He says, no, I can't file it today. He says, so I will adjourn the matter, you file it and we'll pass the order. So some of the things you learn by walking the road, and that gives you confidence when your leadership team in the organization is saying, why is it not happening? I said, ye nahi hua to wo nahi ho raha. Simple as that.
Thank you. So I think that was a very comprehensive guidance for any student who is looking to make his or her career into the legal field. Thank you so much, Raghu, for your time today. And I think a lot of people would learn a lot from this conversation. So thanks so much again for coming over. And yeah.
Thank you, Aman. But before I close, one thing, I just want the youngsters to have patience. Rome was not built in a day, neither will your career be built in a day. I see the youngsters in so much of rush.
Yeah.
They are in so much of rush. Most of them are in for accidents and disasters.
Raghu, actually what is happening today is that, there are a lot of those 22 years old, 23-year-olds who have made big money because of the new economy that has
Correct.
come into the picture. And that actually has its spiral effect on, every other career as well.
That's
so
right.
that's where they are.
No, and this rush for money.
Yeah.
People must realize money is only a medium. It's
Yeah.
not an end. There are millions of people who have a lot of money, but not everybody is known. You are in a knowledge profession. If you have to be known, your knowledge has to speak for it. It cannot be. Nobody look at a lawyer who drives a Ferrari. Maybe they'll look, but would you brief the counsel? I don't know, because you'll brief only when you are comfortable that the counsel who's driving the Ferrari is knowledgeable.
Right, absolutely.
So it's about knowledge. We are a knowledge-based profession. We have to grow our knowledge and be contemporary. You know, that's very important. And thanks, Aman, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure, more than the session meeting you, and so we'll get
My
many more
pleasure,
opportunities.
my absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
So that was C.V. Raghu, General Counsel, Motherson Group, and we'll see you next with another interesting person. Thank you so much.